Okay, hello everyone. Now this would be the part 3 of the Indonesian case study. So this suggests that this case study is actually very important, okay, because there's so much to say, there's so much content, it's actually very rich, right? And that I need to have like 3 lectures to get through this case study alone. Okay, now this is a finale. Okay, and this video we're looking at the Asian financial crisis. Basically, this will be the popular protest, all right, that would finally bring down the giant, okay, that was Suharto himself, right? So that would mark the end of maximum government in Indonesia, ushering in phase 3, okay, which is the return to democracy, right? So therefore, for this lecture, right, what we'll be focusing would be, all right, it's going to be something similar to what you would look at in the Philippines, okay, in the EDSA revolution. So again, this is an example of like a people's power, all right, government by the streets, okay, attempting to topple a government, okay, and a maximum government to boot, okay, and then and looking at the reasons why popular protests were able to overthrow maximum government, okay, and therefore in the same vein, okay, why maximum governments were not able to maintain stability in the long term. All right, so let's start. Right, long story short, okay, Suharto was ultimately unsuccessful in creating stability for his country in the long run, all right? So therefore, when you're trying to assess or trying to evaluate the effectiveness of Suharto's new order government, right, you cannot just be, oh, it's just effective or not effective, okay, but you must be nuanced in your answer, okay, and you must still give him credit, okay, like for example, in the previous lecture, okay, you were looking at the ways in which the Suharto government tried to promote stability, okay, through constitutional processes and by suppressing centrifugal threats, all right, as well as promoting social economic development. So therefore, there was some achievements, okay, in that sense, okay. However, perhaps in the long run, okay, as you will observe in the 1998 Asian financial crisis riots, right, it kind of everything kind of blew up, okay, and then Suharto was finally overthrown, okay. So therefore whilst he was in power, okay, he might have generated a lot of wealth for Indonesia, so therefore definitely he was able to bring about development, stability, and a lot of wealth for a lot of people, okay. However, it was through a heavy hand, okay, so it's a maximum government after all, right, and then it's unfortunately also clearly corrupt, okay. So therefore, like, some sectors of the population benefited more than others. Okay, so therefore there was social tensions, both across class, so maybe like middle class and working class, rich and poor, okay, as well as race. So specifically like the Indonesian Chinese, okay, versus the majority Indonesians. Okay, so in this sense, okay, the biggest challenge to Suharto's regime, right, not the communists, right, not the minorities, okay, but the students. See, you can see how powerful students are. Okay, so much power in your hands, they didn't even realize it. Okay, and the context, okay, would be the Asian financial crisis in 1997. Now, you'll be learning all about the Asian financial crisis, how it started, and what are the consequences in the last topic for your JC2. Okay, so actually, right, by the time you get to this topic, right, you should be very happy because that will be the last topic for JC2 already, the whole syllabus. Then this means that you're almost towards the end already. Okay, but now we still have a long way to go. Okay, so for this, we only learn about the Asian financial crisis in the form of the rioting that took place in 1998 in Indonesia. Okay, so long story short, okay, when the economy collapsed in 1997 because of the Asian financial crisis, Suharto actually did not really respond very effectively. Okay, and some of his policies, some of his actions, right, also seemed out of touch with reality. All right, so the best case in point, which was actually like the straw that broke the camel's back, okay, was that he actually decided to raise taxes on fuel, or in another sense, to remove state subsidies on basic necessities like fuel, okay, just when the financial crisis reached its worst point in Indonesia. Okay, so basically like the people were like suffering already, they kind of lost everything. Okay, there was like huge unemployment, inflation, whatever. The value of the dollar, the rupiah have like what dropped 80% and all that, and then at the same time you decide to raise fuel taxes or to raise the price of fuel. Okay, so that's not a very smart move, right? Okay, so basically, the people just kind of snapped, right, and they just went out the streets because they have nothing more to lose already. They have lost everything. Okay, only their lives are left. Okay, so that's why they just went out the streets. Okay, and so Suharto was eventually forced out of office by widespread demonstrations that broke out in Indonesia, okay, in 1998 as a result of the ineffective response of the Indonesian government, okay, to the Asian financial crisis. So what were these demonstrations like? Right, now in 1998, so there were a lot of student protests, okay, so they were mobilized all over Indonesia, okay, and it became like a national movement because different campuses, okay, across different provinces, they kind of connected and they coordinated and all that, okay. There was a flashpoint, all right, of the Trisakti shootings, okay, that happened in May 1998, so not 2998, not in the future, typo, all right, 1998, whereby soldiers actually opened fire and killed 4 students. So you can imagine how precious students' lives were, right? Yeah. So, and so therefore, as a result, okay, a few days later, students marched from the parliament to the presidential palace, and they were actually flanked by military officers. Okay, so interesting, right? Okay, so therefore, it's something that you observe in the Philippines case study as well. So it's in a sense like the way in which this popular protest or this student protest, right, finally will be able to be successful, right, can also be attributed to some extent to the role of the military. Okay, so therefore the students, I guess it must be a very dramatic moment. All right, so there's this march, and then once they reach the parliament building, the students had occupied it. All right, and then at the same time, okay, at Yogyakarta, right, there were also 500,000 students who gathered at the Sultan's palace. Okay, so this is what it looked like. Okay, so this is the People's Parliament, power to the people, mostly the students lah. So they were hanging out at the parliament. They were basically, yeah, squatting there lah. Then having a lot of banners, rallies, sing songs, what have you. Okay, so there might be a very dramatic moment, okay, for many of them, or unforgettable period for many of them. Okay, on 20th of May, so that's like on the 18th of May, the students occupied the parliament, right? Okay, so 2 days later, Suharto's allies, all right, so his friends, okay, withdrew their support. Okay, starting with the Golkar head. So therefore, remember, the Golkar party is actually Suharto's party. Okay, it was the vehicle or the platform in which Suharto managed to canvass for votes, right, to legitimize his rule. Okay, so therefore, the Golkar head actually supported Suharto's resignation. Okay, and then within the military, okay, there were also some generals, okay, within the military who managed to overpower another one. Okay, so this one is obviously self-interest, right? Suharto's son-in-law himself. Okay, so even within the military, they also began to press for Suharto's resignation. Okay, and then one day later, Suharto felt that it's kind of no hope already. Okay, even his own people, all right, has kind of turned against him, asked him to resign. So therefore, he resigned and turned power over to his vice president Habibie. Okay, and this marked the end of phase 2 maximum governments in Indonesia. All right, so this is his speech. Okay, I will not show you the video because obviously it's in Bahasa, right? So we won't be able to understand them. Okay, but just imagine what it says lah. Right, and then the people, the students, okay, just went crazy. Okay, can't imagine how euphoric they must have felt. All right, the fact that they could actually bring down a Suharto. The Suharto back then is kind of like having the same stature as like our Lee Kuan Yew, our very own Lee Kuan Yew. So you can imagine student demonstrations bring down Lee Kuan Yew himself. Okay, so this would be exact same scale, actually even bigger, because Indonesia is a bigger country, right? Okay, in Indonesia. Okay, and therefore now we have phase 3, okay, which is the return to democracy. But actually you don't really need to know a lot about this for Indonesia case study. I think the Philippines case study is actually more relevant. Okay, you have more details there. Okay, more analysis for you, and of course Singapore. Okay, so therefore for phase 3, you just understand them, all right, and if you're able to bring them in your essays, right, or as a case study for your phase 3, be very impressed. Okay, so therefore the post Suharto government, okay, democratic government, all right, they face a lot of challenges. Okay, so the first challenge was that basically it was very chaotic moment, right, the Asian financial crisis. Okay, so therefore the first challenge that the new government had to face, okay, would be to address the dire economic conditions. Okay, so you can see how horrible the statistics were. 65% inflation there. Right now, our inflation was how many? Less than 10%, and we're already suffering, right? So you can imagine 65%. Okay, and then more than half of the population were estimated to be below the poverty line. Okay, So therefore, they have to address that. So that's criteria 3. So that's the first challenge, right? They also have another challenge, all right? So they have to try and bring about real political reform because, we are at phase 3 after all, right? So it's a democratic phase. So under Habibie, Indonesian politics became more conciliatory. Okay, so it is no longer like a strongman government, okay, no longer a maximum government. Okay, so he released student activists and political prisoners. Okay, there was also a resurgence of party politics. Okay, and then new political parties were formed because it is, I mean, democratic phase. So obviously, you need more political parties, right, to join in the fray, all right, to try and canvass for more supporters. Okay, the Golkar Party itself, okay, reconfigured itself as a new Golkar, okay, to dissociate itself with the negative legacy of the Suharto era. So therefore, even till today, we still have a Golkar Party as well, okay, but it is no longer like, just a rubber stamp party, but it's actually a real political party now. So that's criteria 2. So this would be another challenge, all right, that the new post-Suharto government had to face. Okay, and then Golkar Party actually suffered its first loss in the April 1999 elections. Okay, so it'll be like 1 year after fall of Suharto, right? So Megawati Sukarno Putri's PDIP, so this is another political party, won the elections, right? The Golkar came in second. Okay, and then Golkar Party significantly lost a lot of support from Java, which is actually like the political capital, all right, or the political heart of Indonesia. Okay, and then the National Parliament elected Abdul Rahman Wahid as president and Megawati as vice president in 1999. So Habibie had to step down, right? And then because remember he wasn't like democratically elected. It was because his president resigned. Okay, then he had to take over as president. Okay, and then so therefore they have to wait for a new election for them to elect a new president. That's him. All right. So that's Abdul Rahman Wahid. Okay. And the results of the 1990 elections also show that politics continued to be very divisive. Okay, so therefore there was no like a majority government being formed, still a coalition government. So it's like they are back to the 1955 dilemma lah, right? So therefore political unity, political stability remained an issue even in phase 3. Okay, and then they were more open, more competitive. So it's a real democracy, but also more unstable. Okay, the second president after Suharto, Abdul Rahman, continued to encourage openness and pluralism. Like for example, he gave a lot of he opened up, alright, he gave a lot of freedom to the Chinese, the Indonesian Chinese. Okay, he also gave Aceh and Papua more rights, short of separation from Indonesia, of course. Right now they're still part of Indonesia. Okay, so therefore, again, it's another challenge, all right, that the leaders after Suharto had to face, and that's in criteria 2. Okay, so in the end, even Abdul Rahman was dismissed by the People's Assembly, okay, and Megawati became Indonesia's 5th president. Incidentally, all right, Megawati's father is actually Sukarno. Yeah, so that's why her surname is Sukarno Putri. Right, so so again, like political dynasties, so as to speak. Okay, so therefore we do see like a quick succession of presidents after Suharto. So I guess maybe like the fall of Suharto was too sudden. Okay, it was because of like people's power, all right, and then Indonesia had to like take a few years to find its footing, all right, in order to stabilize itself, all right, and to make sure that this new democratic phase, right, work for them. Okay, so let's do a recap, okay, of Suharto's new order. So this is a very important slide, so please pause and make sure that you take down all the important things that you need, okay, in the lecture notes. All right, so with regards to criteria 1, Suharto government was actually very successful in suppressing centrifugal threats, okay, mainly communist and separatist movements, okay, but with regards to popular opposition, right, that was like their Achilles heel, all right, they will eventually laid low by these student protests. Okay, so therefore, for Suharto new order, okay, with regards to criteria 1, you need to make a distinction, okay, between centrifugal threats and popular opposition. Okay, next, constitutional processes and elections. So you can see that actually, it is okay. It's kind of a balanced thing. They're both good and bad, right? But you cannot say that it is as bad as Ne Win's Burma. Definitely not. Okay, because you must still give them credit, okay, for actually being sincere, all right, carrying out regular elections and opening up political space, okay, sharing power, okay, with a political opposition. But of course, the odds would always be in the favor, okay, of the Golkar Party, okay, because there were still some like underhanded means, right, policies or measures like the political passivity part, all right, that Suharto introduced, okay, to ensure that his Golkar Party would remain in power and the opposition would remain weak and divided. Okay, at the same time, we also see the politicization of the military, okay, with Louis Fongsi. So again, this is another like somewhat like distortion, okay, of traditional constitutional processes and election. Because by right, the military shouldn't be part of criteria 2 in the first place. But military should be in criteria 1, right? Trying to suppress them. Okay, so therefore, for criteria 2, you can see both good and bad. Okay, so you must have like a balanced verdict. All right, we're trying to assess Suharto new government, okay, using criteria 2. Okay, and finally, criteria 3, okay, you do see that, yes, he created new bases of political support, like, for example, Suharto's Chinese cronies, businessmen, okay, and at the same time, the middle class expanded, okay, because there was general, like, prosperity and development, all right, and these middle class generally supported the Suharto government because they have benefited, they have seen how this new government had benefited them. Okay, however, their children thought otherwise. Okay, their children went to universities, they became radicalized, all right, and they started taking part in like a lot of demonstrations and protests. Okay, so essentially, these sorts of support will ultimately backfire on the government. Okay, so there you have it. Indonesia is finally done, right? So we'll go to the next case study, which is Philippines next.